Hello, and welcome to the Advantage Computer Solutions video training series for Microsoft Excel. In this session, you will learn how to work with formulas, and I mean really work with formulas. We're going to cover the fundamental principle that underlies all formulas in Excel, and without which people find themselves in a lot of trouble and aggravation and frustration at times. So let's get right into it. Here we have the spreadsheet. We've already worked with another segment, name, address, city, state, zip, but last time we also added hours and rate and got a total dollar amount of pay for employees. Well, now I want to get a percentage of their pay vis-a-vis the total for the group. The total group total was 6,450. You can see that in row number 14 or 13. What is the percentage of each individual vis-a-vis that total? Well, I could take equals 600 for the first employee, divide, that's the slash key, and divide that by 6,450. And that would give me the correct percentage, which would be about 9.3%. Of course, then I'd have to type in the formula for each person, and that defeats the purpose of a spreadsheet. So we're not going to do that. How about if we took equals, and we took cell G2, and divided that by cell G13. And there we get exactly the same total, same percentage, 9.3%. Now if I copy this down, I should get a percentage of all of my employees, and I can hand this report to the well, maybe not. There's a problem here. And this is a problem that I was alluding to in the beginning that people face when copying and pasting formulas. And in order to understand it, I'm going to show you a few examples. And we're going to understand what Excel is really doing with formulas. I'm going to create a list and do a quick total. And now I have a list of numbers with a total. And if I were to ask what is in cell C29, many people would quickly say 276, and I would say wrong. And then they'll say, oh, I know, it's the sum of cell C5 through C28, which is also wrong. It looks like that, but it's not. And at that point, people start to think I'm a little bit crazy, but I'm not. I'm going to prove that this cell does not contain the sum of C5 through C28. And I'm going to prove it like this. I'm going to copy cell C29, which has that formula, but before I copy that, just think of the following. If you were to take a piece of paper with writing on it, put it on the copy machine in your office and press the green button, what do you get? A duplicate, an exact copy. Copy means duplicate. Ergo, if I were to copy cell C29, and if the contents of C29 really was the sum of C5 to C28, and I paste it in column E, I should get the same thing, the sum of C5 through C28, but I don't. I get the sum of E5 through E28. So either I did not copy the formula, which I most certainly did, or this is not the sum of C5 to C28, which is exactly what I was saying. So what is it really? The critical thing to remember is that Excel does not see cell addresses. What do I mean by that? A cell address, of course, is the intersection between the column and the row number. F8, H12, I6. Never make the mistake of going to play bingo with Excel as your partner. You lose every time. He's got a card and it has I12 on it, and the guy out front sends the ball around and says I12, and Excel doesn't say anything. He has no idea what a cell address is. So how does Excel really work? When you type in equal sum C5 through C28, Excel's brain says the following. Give me the sum of 18 cells above the current cell, or whatever number of cells it is, in this case maybe 23. Give me the sum of 23 cells above, plus 22 cells above, plus 21 cells above, plus etc. That is what Excel is seeing. It's the directions of how to get to those cells. Now, when we copy and paste that formula, we indeed get a true duplicate, because this formula is the sum of 23 rows above plus 22 rows above plus exactly the same. And as long as the cells are in the same relative position, the formula will work. This is actually known as relative cell references. Let's take a look at another example because it's very tricky and critical to using Excel. I'm going to take 10% of a principal amount of 100,000. I'm simply going to multiply the principal by the percentage, 10%, and I get $10,000. 10% of 100,000, 10,000. I'm going to copy my formula and move it down one, and when we press enter, what are we going to get? 20,000, right? No, we're not. Let's see why not. What was our original formula? We typed in equals I27 times J26. What does Excel really see? It doesn't see the cell addresses. It sees the directions of how to get to them. Equals I27 tells Excel to move 2 cells to the left. Take the value of the 2 cells to the left, multiply that by 1 cell to the left, and 1 cell above. And you get 10,000 as the result. Remember again the importance between the result of the cell and the formula that's in the cell. When you copy and paste the formula, Excel does exactly what you told it to do. It copies it, an exact duplicate. It will move 2 cells to the left and pick up the principal amount of 200,000 and then multiply it by 1 cell to the left and 1 cell up, which is blank, which is why the result is 0. Let's look at one more example, and then we're going back to our percentages. We have here Mark, Julio, and Heather, and they work January, February, March. They have sales, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's a mini spreadsheet, but a good one. And we have totaled up their numbers of sales, let's say, for each month. Now, the boss wants a summary for those 3 months. So we're going to copy. You end up and paste. And he just wants a summary. He doesn't want any detail. He wants to know the total numbers. So you copy those formulas and move them up underneath January, February, March. Press enter. Say, I'm glad I'm done with this. I can go home for the week. Well, the boss would not be very pleased because you're not giving him anything. What was it that you copied and pasted? Well, the formula that we originally had was equal sum N15 through N18. But now we know that Excel does not see the cell addresses. What this formula really means is, give me the sum of 4 cells above the current cell, plus 3 cells above, plus 2 cells above, plus 1 cell above. When you copy and paste that formula to the right, it does exactly the same thing. This is the sum of 4 cells above, plus 3 cells above, plus 2 cells above, plus 1 cell above, and you can copy it again. This is why Excel works. As long as the numbers are in the relative position, one to the other, you can copy the formula to the right and do, let's say, January through December in an instant using the copy and paste. But when we copy and paste the formula, what happens? Again, we'll copy and paste. Now, Excel very dutifully pasted the formula, which says, give me the sum of 4 rows above this cell plus 3. Excel stops, scratches his head, and says, what are you talking about? There is no 4 rows above this cell. It doesn't exist. Your reference is not valid. That is what that error message means. Ref, your reference is not valid. You tried to have me do something that's not possible. Let's look back now at our percentage. When we typed in this formula, which was equals G2 divided by G13, and we tried to copy it down, we got error messages. Why? For the same reason. When we type in that formula, Excel is not looking at the cell addresses. Excel is saying, give me the value of 1 cell to the left of the current cell, 1 cell to the left of H is G, and divide that by 1 column to the left and let's say 11 rows down. It works for the first one, but when we copy and paste it, Excel does the same thing. Give me the value of one cell to the left, divide that by one cell to the left and 11 rows down. Well, 11 rows down is blank, so you're trying to divide by nothing, which is an error. You can't do it. So how do we fix this problem? In this case, it's fairly simple. We're going to edit our formula a little bit. We want Excel to look one cell to the left because we're always going to be looking at the total dollar amount for each person, okay? So that's equal G2 is fine, one cell to the left. We're going to divide that by a number that is one cell to the left because the total for the group is one column to the left. But we don't want row 13 because that's 11 down. What we want to do is lock in row 13. So instead of just typing in the row number 13, we're going to use a $ before the row number. The $ has nothing to do with currency. It's just an arbitrary key used by the developers. And that $ locks in the row and makes it what's called an absolute cell reference. Now this formula reads, give me the value of one cell to the left, divide that value by one cell or one column to the left, and row 13, and I mean row 13, not just 11 rows down. So we get our same 9%, and we can copy our formula down and press enter, and now we have all of our percentages. Just a few shortcuts before we leave this session. Right now you have a total dollar amount of hours times rate for each employee, but what if we wanted it to look like currency? Well, we're going to highlight all of the numbers, but instead of reaching for the mouse and clicking on something, hold down together both the Shift and Control keys and tap the $. If you want percentages, highlight the section that you want, the cells, Shift Control, and the % key, which is the number 5 key. Or, if you wanted, let's say, instead of $, you could press Shift Control with the number 1 key, and that will give you 2 decimal points with a comma separator without the $. So again, Shift Control $, will give you currency. Shift Control number 1 will give you decimals and a comma separator without a $. And Shift Control with the % key will give you percentages. Of course, you could always do this with the mouse. You could highlight all of the information and right-click on the cells and choose Format Cells, and then choose currency and the number of decimal places that you want, and then click OK. But if you like shortcuts, Shift Control $ is a good one. In the next session, you will learn how to work with dates, and also learn how to pretty things up a little bit. Until next time, and remember, if you want to get ahead, get the advantage.